Hello, JP Rangaswami. You are the chief scientist of Salesforce.
That's right.
Quite newly appointed.
Yes,
Yes.
I've been there nearly 7 months.
Yes. And what does a chief scientist actually do?
Well, I personally focus on 3 things. One, spending time in the market, discussing the cloud, understanding what people want from it, understanding what we can do different, spending time with customers and with staff to try and take those lessons and interpret them, and then spending time with product strategy to make sure that we implement those lessons. So we're at a pioneering time about the cloud, and I think because it's that exciting, it's a whole new web. We need to get the answers right. One of the biggest challenges is everything is talking about global scale, and things that used to be scarce are now abundant. But that means that we need new ways of looking at our values and ethics, new ways of how to deal with, it's like the challenge between privacy and collaboration, right? For a long time in companies and as people, we learned to be selfish.
Yeah.
Now there are problems, like climate change or even aspects to do with how a company should work, how customers should engage. In fact, I was so excited that yesterday, for the first time, we announced in Japan that we're connecting Toyota's company with its customers and its cars. So now the social network has a traditional company actually engaging directly with its customers and giving them voice. And it's not just the customers, you're also, the car is tweeting, saying, I need a service, I have so much battery life, or describing its location, because the technology has been there. But I think we've learned about connectivity, but not about social. And the 3 words that are driving the future are social, mobile, and open. But many companies don't know how to be open. Many companies haven't really grasped mobility, and being social does not come naturally to them either. You put those things together, and then you have the new challenge of green. How do you do this sustainably? How do you do this in a way that you're not, your carbon footprint is reasonable? So while the technology has been there, the values, the ethics, the social norms have not.
So do you see how should a more traditional company really move into that direction? How do they get from A to B, so to speak?
I think that one of the good things about modern technology is once the decision is made, right, it's not the technology that is the challenge, it is actually the social norms.
Yeah.
So people who are used to not sharing, who believe information is power, or who build a wall between them and their customer, learning that the customer is actually the one who pays the money, and that delighting the customer is valuable, and that customers have insight. If you bring the customer into the conversation, they will share with you things about what they like about the product, what new products or services they want, what you're doing well. Alternatively, if you don't bring them in, the risk is also very big, which is your brand is in the conversation in the social media, and you are not part of the conversation.
I find many companies say that they can't really monetize the social media conversations, and they don't see any return on investment on the effort brought into it. What do you say to them?
Well, I think it's evolutionary. It's obviously like saying that any form of such social media has network effects. Like with the internet, the more people join it, the better. Okay? Initially, in most companies, a small group joined in one department or something because they wanted to prove a pilot. And it's very hard to see the value because we haven't got to critical mass. Okay, it's usually one department. You need to have many in order to see the lateral communications. Once you've learned that, the real value is in connecting up with your customers and with your supply chain. But many people are scared of that because of this privacy and confidentiality issue. So, in some ways, the people who are the most scared of using social media, by insisting that the pilot is in one department, does not involve partners, does not involve customers, they've already thrown a lot of the potential ROI value, because all they have left is some reduced search cost to do with knowledge management within the firm, and some partial replacement on email. But email per se is not expensive in direct cost terms. It's expensive in the time consumed to deal with it.
But how many brands do you think we can, as consumers, can cope to interact with? I mean, how are we interested in interacting with rather generic service functions, like perhaps our car manufacturer or our bank, or?
My suspicion is that we will learn about it. So it's a very fair question. It's saying how much time do we have and what are our priorities. But for most people, the sense will be that the amount of time we've spent in engaging with businesses before the internet will continue to be the same, but you will get more value out of those exchanges. I'm not suddenly expecting somebody to spend 2 hours a day sort of interacting with their car manufacturer. But the value comes in being able to talk to other customers so that you get best practice, you get filtering of issues, you have the ability to learn in a collaborative manner. Right? People have forgotten that the word social is in social media, that the learning actually comes because we are smarter than me. So we are able to leverage what other people are doing because those experiences are shared, because they're findable, because you can tag them and enrich them and send them back to say mine was slightly different, because it's multimedia, because even like this conversation right now, right? You have something that looks like a traditional camera in your hands, but there's going to be a video clip and it is going to be made available to many, many more people than would have been the case even 10 years ago. Okay? So that kind of learning that takes place, when you see it in any community of participants that already have a shared outlook, so they have the same car, or they live in the same place, or they like the same kind of food, or they have the same sort of film or book or music interest, or they're interested in solving the same problems, you'll find that they all manage to use the social network to achieve all the three things that are payoffs, which is one, learning, which is the biggest payoff for us all, because if you can reduce the search cost for other people who know something to help you, replay the experiences of the past, and be able to augment them for experiences of the future, that learning is huge.
And how are we going to because I feel many companies are very scared of going from the sort of controlled Facebook fan page interaction where they post content and people comment, to this rather immersive interaction where customers and consumers talk to each other without much control.
Yes, and I think that if the power and the control actually was in the hands of the company, I would understand. But my perception is that the genie has already got out of the bottle. Right? The conversations are taking place in Twitter and Facebook. Customers are setting up their own pages. So the company-controlled fan page is valuable and powerful because it's like the wireless telegraph or the horseless carriage. Right? A company moving from A to B needs to have not too quick a paradigm shift because they can't cope with the change of control. But they must realize that their customers are thinking of it differently. The customers have already moved into the external social media. The conversations are there, the brand is there, and potentially their competition is already there. So, you will hear me talk about it later today, the implications of the tools that are there now as people mine that information, that you have sentiment analysis. People look at that and saying it's still in the hands of the company. I think the biggest shift is actually it's in the hands of the customer, and we are providing tools now to help companies realize that the power and the control has shifted to the customer. There is a way of doing good business when that is happening, but only if you realize that that shift is taking place. Okay? But if you stay in your comfort zone, that's reasonable because that's what most companies would do. But you must be very sensitive to realizing where your competition is going, and most importantly, where your customer is going. Right? If the customer has already moved the conversation out to the control environment of the company, then the company must follow because you must be where the customer is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
JP Rangaswamy from Salesforce.
Okay.